A few years back, I had a very unpleasant exchange with a Chinese man at an international conference in Dubai. I was just sitting there. I had my digital SLR camera because I was sightseeing and enjoying the place and just wanted to, and I enjoy photography, so I was bringing that around everywhere with me. And he sees that, he sees me, and he's like, one of the first things he says to me is like, "Oh, so you're American, CIA?" And I'm like, where did this come from? Then he proceeds to accuse not just me, but all Americans of being hypocrites. I was like, okay, is an interesting exchange. This hasn't happened to me before. His accusation was that, we as Americans claim to stand up for human rights, for human dignity. We claim to be kind of this bastion of law and order and justice in the world. And this is, not too many years after 9/11. Well, actually quite a few years after 9/11, but it was still fresh in our memories. What happened at Abu Ghraib, the torture at, CIA black sites, what was happening in Guantanamo. All this stuff was coming out, and, it was discovered that even the government had lawyers draw up memos making, essentially torture legal. So this guy had some points, right? But in that moment, I'm not usually a nationalistic person, but in that moment, I became a very nationalistic American. Okay. I was really upset at these accusations, like leveled against America. And so I responded. I'm like, look, America's not perfect. We've done some really bad things, but I would still rather be a Muslim in America in the post 9/11 world than being a Muslim in China. And I explained to him why. Like, look, again, we have shortcomings, but we have a system, we have values that allow us to come back from this. And even though there may be some miscarriages of justice, even though there have been some pretty horrible things done, there are good people who are working within the system to right things because we have those values. That's not the same in China. Like, look what's happening to the Uyghurs in China. Look at, I hear stories that, even in Ramadan, people who are fasting are forced to eat. They're forced to eat pork. They're forced to do all sorts of horrible things. And now, years later, we discover that, they're actually putting the Uyghurs in these work camps and, all sorts of other horrific things. It's easy for you to level this accusation against America that, we're hypocrites because we're not living up to these moral standards we've created for ourselves. But is it better not to have moral standards and to, humiliate, your people, to deprive them of dignity, to deprive them of even their livelihood and their lives even? We as a society really hate hypocrisy, right? And I think that's one of the reasons I was so offended. Like, hypocrisy is such a bad thing. We don't like it. We don't like people not standing firm to their beliefs. But there is something worse than hypocrisy, and that's not having values, not having moral and ethical standards, because then there's nothing to bring you back when you go astray. I think there's a lot of lessons we could take from this. First is, wow, I didn't realize I can become so nationalistic and proud American so quickly. The other thing is, how easily he judged me, right? He sees like a, white guy with a camera. All of a sudden I'm CIA and I embody everything he hates about, America. Jumping to conclusions. That was another lesson we could take from this. The other thing is, like I said, it is important to have values. Even though we can be accused of hypocrisy, even though people can accuse us of not living up to our standards, those standards are still incredibly important because they're the things that bring us back when we do mess up. I'm wondering what everybody else thinks about this exchange, what other kind of lessons you can pull from it, or if anybody else has an experience like this. I'm curious to hear. And even the topic of, hypocrisy, being accused of hypocrisy. Is it better to have morals and stray from them, or to just not have morals and never be accused of hypocrisy. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time. Bye.